What if you could design your children to be perfectly happy by making them slaves? This isn't science fiction. It's a blueprint for a future we're already building, a world where the words mother and father are considered obscene. It all begins in a place like this, a room that is cold, bright, and unnervingly vast. Here, under a frozen dead light, the future is decanted from glass bottles. The air hums with the faint, almost inaudible thrum of machinery, thick with the sharp, clean scent of ozone and alcohol. This is the Central London Hatchery and Conditioning Centre, a factory floor where humanity is no longer born, but manufactured. Here, the messy, unpredictable, and passionate business of biology has been tamed, perfected, and placed under rational control. The director of the facility, a man whose sterile white coat is as immaculate as his thinking, leads a tour of young students, his voice a clinical monotone. He gestures towards the fertilizing room, where surgically removed ovaries, each catalogued with its genetic profile, are kept functioning at blood heat. He explains how each ovum is meticulously inspected, then fertilized in vitro inside a specially warmed container. Some are designated as free martins, females deliberately exposed to male hormones during development, rendering them sterile. This biological intervention is crucial, he explains, as it ensures that the chaotic passions of reproduction, courtship, and jealousy are biologically impossible for 70% of the female population, creating a placid and stable workforce. The key to this new world is a shocking intervention that forces a single human egg to divide and proliferate, creating nearly 100 identical embryos. This is the Bokanovsky process, a name spoken with religious reverence. It is the ultimate expression of mass production applied directly to life itself. 96 identical humans for 96 identical machines. The director smiles. It is the foundation of social stability. An entire factory staffed by the products of a single egg, all working in perfect, identical harmony, their thoughts and impulses as interchangeable as their faces. As the tour moves to the bottling room, the students watch as the tiny embryos are transferred to their artificial wombs, labeled and sent on a long, slow journey along a conveyor belt, the ultimate symbol of this dehumanized world. On this journey, they are engineered for their roles. Using techniques like Podsnap's technique to accelerate maturation, they can grow a human embryo to full term in a fraction of the natural time. The highest castes, the intellectually superior alphas and betas, are destined for the complex work of society, but the lower castes are deliberately damaged. Their bottles are dosed with alcohol and deprived of oxygen to arrest their development, ensuring they are physically and mentally suited for their lives of menial labor. The students watch as some bottles are spun relentlessly on racks. These, the director explains, are future rocket ship mechanics, conditioned from the embryonic stage to feel comfort and well-being only when they are upside down, making them perfect for navigating the challenges of space travel without complaint. Every citizen is a perfect fit for their cog in the machine, not by choice, but by design. The process continues after they are decanted. In the neo-Pavlovian conditioning rooms, babies are taught to hate books and nature with the blare of sirens and the sting of electric shocks. The director demonstrates, showing a group of 8-month-old Delta babies, dressed in identical khaki, being offered beautiful picture books and fragrant flowers. The babies, gurgling with delight, crawl towards them. But as their little hands reach out, a shrill alarm bell sounds, and a mild electric shock shoots through the polished floor. The infants scream and draw back in terror, their pleasure instantly replaced by shrieking fear. The process is repeated 200 times. The reason, the director explains, is simple efficiency. A love of nature keeps no factories busy. A love of books, filled with the disruptive ideas of the past, is even worse. In the dormitories, whispers in the dark program their sleeping minds. Ending is better than mending, a core principle of the consumer economy that discourages repair and encourages constant purchasing. A gram is better than a dam, the simple solution to every emotional ill, replacing complex thought with chemical bliss. The more stitches, the less riches, a slogan to discourage the poor from valuing quality craftsmanship over cheap, disposable goods. These aren't just slogans, they are the operating system of the soul. And through these whispers, the most profound conditioning of all takes place, the complete erasure of the family. The director speaks of mothers and fathers, and the students on his tour cover their ears. The very words are disgusting, relics of a past defined by filth and madness. The home, with its suffocating passions of love, jealousy, and loyalty, has been abolished. It was the source of all misery, a cage of emotion. Today, every child belongs to the state alone. Here, they have not only conquered nature, they have conquered human nature itself, creating a population that is content, productive, and perfectly, terrifyingly stable. And the mind that conceived of this chillingly perfect society was forged in an age of chaos, conflict, and radical new ideas. This terrifying vision of the future didn't emerge from a vacuum. It was born from the anxieties of a world reeling from war and drunk on progress. The early 20th century was a time of violent change. The Great War had shattered the old European order, leaving behind a lost generation, deeply skeptical of the grand traditions of honor and patriotism that had led them into the mechanized slaughter of the trenches. This disillusionment created a spiritual void, a desperate search for order and stability that made radical totalitarian ideas seem appealing. In America, Henry Ford was pioneering a new way of life. His assembly line was a miracle of efficiency, but it also transformed the worker into an extension of the machine. Ford's vision went beyond the factory floor. His sociological department would inspect his workers' homes to ensure they were living moral, efficient lives, free from alcohol and dissent. This blend of industrial production and intrusive social control was a direct inspiration for Huxley's world state. Ford's philosophy of mass production and mass consumption created a culture where happiness was measured by what you could buy. His influence was so profound that in Huxley's future, time itself is measured in the era after Ford. At the same time, new theories in psychology argued that human beings were not driven by free will, but were machines to be programmed. Ivan Pavlov's dogs and John B. Watson's behaviorism suggested that any human, given the right conditioning, could be shaped into any type of person. Into this turbulent world, Aldous Huxley was born in 1894. He was part of England's intellectual aristocracy, the grandson of the famous biologist known as Darwin's bulldog. Educated at Eton College and Oxford, Huxley was steeped in the scientific and literary traditions of his time. He understood the power of science, but also its dangers. At 16, a severe eye infection left him nearly blind, forcing him into a life of intellectual observation. His skepticism was deepened by his mother's early death, which left him with a lasting aversion to the easy, comforting platitudes people use to mask reality. As a young man, he lived in Italy during the rise of Benito Mussolini, where he witnessed firsthand the power of state propaganda, mass rallies, and the deliberate suppression of the individual in favor of the collective. Later, on a visit to the United States, he was both amazed and repelled by American consumer culture, its relentless cheerfulness, and its homogenizing effect on society. He saw a world rushing headlong into a future it did not understand. This culminated in the writing of Brave New World in 1932. It was a direct satirical response to the optimistic utopian novels of his contemporary H.G. Wells, who in books like Men Like Gods envisioned futures where science and reason had solved all of humanity's problems. Huxley saw a darker possibility. He feared that the relentless pursuit of efficiency would lead not to liberation, but to a new form of servitude, one that humanity would willingly choose, trading its soul for a life of guaranteed safety and mindless pleasure. The ideas we explore here on Great Books Explained are designed to make us think about our world in new ways. If you appreciate this kind of deep dive, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps us continue to bring these important works to life. To maintain the stability of this new world, social engineering could not stop at birth. The conditioning had to be reinforced every single day. The architects of the world state understood a profound truth. A truly controlled population is not one that is oppressed by force, but one that is so thoroughly distracted it never even thinks to question its reality. They built a society that was not a prison of walls, but a gilded cage of endless, superficial pleasure. How do you keep billions perfectly enslaved? You don't use chains, you use pleasure. The rigid caste system ensures everyone is happy with their lot. A Citizen's Day is a model of this contentment. We can imagine a typical beater, perhaps named Henry. He wakes in his sterile apartment, takes a pneumatic shower, and puts on his caste-appropriate clothing. He travels by helicopter to his job at the hatchery, a job he is perfectly designed for and therefore enjoys in a mild, untroubled way. After work, he meets up with some colleagues for a game of obstacle golf, followed by a casual sexual encounter with a woman he met last week. There is no courtship, no emotional connection, just a simple satisfaction of a biological urge. Before sleep, if any flicker of anxiety or boredom from his uneventful day should arise, he reaches for his dose of soma. This is the second key symbol, willful ignorance in pill form. It's the perfect drug, flooding the user with euphoria and erasing any rough edges of reality. It offers all the advantages of religion and alcohol, with none of their defects. If a citizen feels a hint of sadness, they take a soma holiday, escaping their own consciousness for hours or days. It's the state's most powerful tool, a chemical leash that keeps the population docile. It makes you wonder, in our modern world that offers a pill for every problem and an app for every discomfort, how often do we reach for our own version of soma to avoid facing a difficult truth? What do you think of a world that offers a cure for sadness? Let us know in the comments below. The state's control extends to the most sacred human experiences. Deep feelings, particularly love, are dangerous. A powerful bond between two people creates a loyalty that can compete with the state. To prevent this, romantic love has been abolished. The slogan, "Everyone belongs to everyone else," is taken literally. Even death has been stripped of its terror. At the Park Lane Hospital for the Dying, patients are kept in pleasant, colorful wards, surrounded by music and sweet smells. Children are brought here for death conditioning, given treats, and encouraged to play around the beds of the dying to associate the process with pleasantness and normalcy, removing its sting and its significance. Perhaps the most bizarre ritual is the Solidarity Service, a mandatory bi-weekly event. 12 people gather in a circle, consume soma-laced communion in the form of strawberry ice cream, and begin a rhythmic chant. They stomp their feet to a hypnotic beat, chanting, "Orgy porgy, Ford and fun, kiss the girls and make them one." The frenzy builds until their individual identities melt away, and they merge into a single, ecstatic whole, an experience that invariably ends in a group orgy. It is the world state's substitute for religious experience, channeling the human yearning for transcendence into a state-sanctioned ritual that reinforces social cohesion and obliterates the self. This vast architecture of control has eliminated war, poverty, and misery. But in doing so, it has also eliminated love, art, and truth. It is a perfect world where no one is ever unhappy, and no one is ever truly alive. Yet even in this system, anomalies can occur. Far from the conditioned perfection of London, there existed a place where the old world survived, a place of dirt, disease, gods, and families. A place where a boy was raised not on sleep teaching, but on the poetry of a long-dead writer named William Shakespeare. This was the Savage Reservation in New Mexico. Here, the natives practiced a blend of Zuni traditions and a warped form of Christianity. It was a world of pain, but also of purpose. John, the boy who would become the savage, witnessed their rituals firsthand. He saw a young man whipped at a ceremonial altar until he collapsed, a sacrifice for the good of the community. He was both horrified and fascinated by this display of purification through pain, an idea that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Within the gleaming society of London, discontent was rare. But there was Bernard Marx, an alpha plus who felt like an outcast, his insecurity allowing him to see the hollowness of his world. And there was Helmholtz Watson, a man so brilliant he was suffocating on the triviality of his society. It was Bernard who, on a trip to the reservation with a perfectly conventional beta named Lenina Crown, discovered John. He was the son of a civilized woman, Linda, who had been lost there years ago. Linda's story was a tragedy. She tried to maintain her civilized ways, but slowly declined into alcoholism with the native drink, mezcal, scorned by the natives for her conditioned promiscuity. She was a woman trapped between two worlds, belonging to neither. John grew up an outcast. His only solace was a tattered book Linda had found, the complete works of William Shakespeare. This book became the third key symbol, the ghost of a lost humanity. For John, Shakespeare wasn't just literature, it was his moral compass. Hamlet's grief taught him about filial duty. Othello's jealousy shaped his fear of intimacy and betrayal, making him see women as either pure angels or treacherous temptresses. Romeo and Juliet gave him a vision of a love so profound it was worth dying for. It gave him a language for passion, grief, honor, and love concepts that were alien to the world state. Seeing an opportunity, Bernard brought John and Linda back to London. The savage became an instant celebrity. Initially, John was mesmerized, quoting Miranda from The Tempest, "O brave new world that has such people in't." But his wonder quickly turned to horror. He saw a population of identical slaves. He watched his mother, Linda, embrace a permanent summer holiday to escape a world where she was now old and grotesque, eventually overdosing in a hospital where children played around her deathbed. He was repulsed by the casual promiscuity, especially from Lenina, a woman for whom he felt a deep Shakespearean love. When she offered herself to him sexually, he recoiled in horror, calling her an impudent strumpet, his mind unable to reconcile love with casual physicality. John was a living embodiment of everything the world state had sacrificed. His passionate soul was on a collision course with this emotionless paradise. What happens when a man who believes in poetry, God, and suffering confronts a world that has meticulously engineered them out of existence? After his mother dies, John snaps. He sees workers lining up for their daily soma ration and, in a desperate frenzy, tries to set them free by throwing the drug away. "I'll teach you to be free," he shouts, "whether you want to be or not." The ensuing riot brings the authorities, and John is brought before the most powerful man in Western Europe, Mustafa Mond, the world controller. Mond is not a simple tyrant. He is a brilliant man who understands exactly what his society has given up. He defends it with chilling logic. He explains the Cyprus experiment, an attempt to create a society of only alphas that collapsed into civil war within 6 years, proving the need for a hierarchical caste system. He describes the catastrophic 9 Years' War and the economic collapse that followed, a period of such misery that the world begged for the world controllers to take over and impose order at any cost. "You can't make tragedies without social instability," Mond says. "The world's stable now. People are happy." He explains that masterpieces like Othello are simply too upsetting, too beautiful, and too passionate for a stable society. They create feelings that people could no longer understand or control. He then reveals that he, too, was once a brilliant, rebellious physicist who had to choose between being sent to an island and becoming a world controller. He chose control, sacrificing his own love of truth for the happiness of the masses. Science, he admits, must be kept on a tight leash, a cookery book with recipes for maintaining the status quo, but forbidden from seeking any new or disruptive truths. He defends the system with cold, impeccable logic, explaining that humanity had to choose between happiness and high art, between comfort and truth. They chose comfort. John, fueled by Shakespeare, passionately rebuts. He argues for the value of an inconvenient truth over a comfortable lie. When Mond dismisses God as an obsolete concept in a world without loss or fear, John defends the necessity of belief. The debate reaches its climax. "But I don't want comfort," John cries. "I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin." Mond, with a calm, almost sad understanding, replies, "In fact, you're claiming the right to be unhappy." John's response is resolute. "All right then, I'm claiming the right to be unhappy." This was the fundamental choice. Mond allows John to leave society for a life of isolation in a remote lighthouse. John tries to purge himself of civilization through pain, planting a garden and practicing self-flagellation with a knotted whip, seeking a life of meaning. But the world he fled will not let him go. A photographer captures his penance, and it's turned into a sensational feelie. Soon, helicopters of tourists descend, chanting, "We want the whip," and treating his profound spiritual anguish as a thrilling, grotesque entertainment. In a final, desperate frenzy, consumed by the horror of a world that turns even suffering into a spectacle, John takes his own life. The next morning, reporters find his feet slowly turning, a grim, silent compass pointing to all the corners of a world that had no place for him. His tragic end is not just a story, it is a stark illustration of Huxley's warning. The savage wasn't defeated by tyranny, but by a society so steeped in triviality that it could only consume his pain as a spectacle. His desire for meaning was simply incomprehensible. This story serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of the individual spirit. If this exploration of ideas resonated with you, please share it with a friend who also appreciates classic literature and challenging questions. Thank you for joining us on this journey. The great books are conversations across centuries that challenge us to examine our own world. To continue exploring the most powerful ideas ever put to paper, be sure to subscribe to Great Books Explained and join the conversation below. John claimed the right to be unhappy. The question Brave New World leaves us with is, are we brave enough to do the same?